I'm going to take you on a little tour of a mafia establishment. Now, the property manager has been on the phone and has said that she admits to being mafia as well as this establishment being mafia. But I can't, of course, hold her to that because when I try, she'll, of course, deny it because she's mafia. All right, so you can see tape, right? Tape, right? Mine's tape, old radiator, piece of shit, rusted old radiator that burns oil and makes you all kinds of sick with the oil that it burns, right? And this is in the United States, which to me is unimaginable because this is like Soviet era, Soviet Russia establishment. We don't have rent control here in Seattle, so for a piece of shit like this with all this tape and damage, there's water damage up here, water damage right here, right? Maybe, yeah, you can see it, right? Water damage, they've slapped paint over it, right? It's falling apart. That fucking thing never stayed in place, that door. I had a cat that sort of knocked it out, but since the cat knocked it out, I'm not blaming the cat because there was already an issue before she messed with it. This piece of shit closet thing divides the room. Yes, it does do that and gives me a sort of a bedroom. It doesn't have a window in it, so it's not a bedroom by law. And this thing here, it really doesn't need to be here. It's outdated. It cuts the space in two. In some ways it's good. In some ways having the bookcase is handy. But this place, I'm telling you, Mafia Place, is not worth $1,225 per month, or $1,225 if you want to put it that way. And I will not give $1,200 to mafia criminals a month, or at any duration, ever again, if I can help it. And it's really hard to help it because in the United States, we do have that problem of those organizations, criminal organizations and gangs, owning these properties, and there's nobody doing anything about it. And because the country's overrun in the government, in the administration, everywhere. So I don't know who I'm talking to or who needs to hear this or who's even going to be doing stuff about it. Personally, I'm one of the ones who considers myself urgently required to do stuff about it by joining the police, maybe going to law school, and things of that nature. But there are those that have already done this. I assume they're not all mafia affiliated, so I'm just showing you. Seattle apartment. Like, yes, in New York City, it would be 3 times as much, which is even more insane. Chicago, New York City, overrun by gangs. I believe that if Trump goes to jail, prices could go down, for one thing, because you've lost a mafia kingpin. He's in jail. Just like Al Capone. No different than Al Capone, that guy. How can you find a difference between him and Al Capone in terms of their actual character, their actual physical being, right? Fat, overweight, New York, well, Chicago, New York, Chicago, right? Same exact shit, except that he managed to be president of the United States, which shows us that everything is in total decay right now. Everything is in anarchy right now. He wanted to instill anarchy. We saw that society really doesn't work in anarchy. You have to admit that. You have to admit that during that period of time, those 4 years when there was no president, there was just a guy plotting against his own people with the authority of the president. You have to admit that it went to shit. They released COVID. It was a release. They developed that shit in a lab with a crazy fucking Nazi doctor named Fauci who works for the government and used U.S. tax dollars, your tax dollars, to make us all sick and spread that shit around. And ultimately try to destroy us with the second bubonic plague, essentially. But anyway, I'm sick of this arrangement. Look at this shit. I had to put this up because of this shit not working. This shit, the track, you can't pull the curtains. It's snapped in two. Like, fuck that shit. I pulled these fucking things down in my rage against that. And then I hung them back up like a good person. I got little stickers to put them back in. And it doesn't look any better. It functioned for a little while, Then it went to shit. I had to put this stupid sheet over here, so I can't look out the window. I don't get to enjoy the sun. So I am going, and if you're listening to me, manager, I'm gonna nail you to a goddamn cross, you fucking bitch. So you better hope to pray that you won't be destroyed by a bunch of militia Antifa people who we see this video and say, that's not fair, well, let's get rid of her, you know, which I think you're probably more on the side of Antifa because they really do stand for lawlessness and anarchy and part of the decay as well. But they're meant to be on the far left, and the left is meant to be just and rooted in democracy. So my whole spiel here is against Seattle, the city of Seattle, for allowing this to happen, for not controlling the rent, for doing nothing about that, and that's why I want to be elected under the rent is too damn high party to help you get through that as a city, to not have shit like this to live in and be dirt poor doing it and work your ass off to pay a rent higher than a mortgage. I'm also apprehensive against the country, against Antifa, against the right-wing Republicans and conservatives. You don't have a right to exist within the government system because you perpetuate a 200-year-old organization called the Confederacy of the United States of America, or the Confederate States of the United States of America, which is perpetuated through your existence here as Republicans. So there's no excuse for that. And I will get power and come against you. Those that hear this, that have power, please join the cause, write the appropriate people. The rest of us are ignorant. Even at the undergraduate level, we don't know who to write, what to say, who cares, who's actually doing something, who's able to change people from living in total poverty where this building could fall down on our heads at any time because of the shitty, thrown together, under the table mafia wages that they had when they constructed this in like 1960, 1970. And this is true for a lot of the country. And I can't believe this. I didn't think growing up that our country was like this. But it's basically worse than Soviet Russia. You should be ashamed of yourself, both the landowner, the city, the manager. You should not have this job. You should not have any job under the sun. You have bipolar depression and you should be in jail. Other than that, that's about it. I'm gonna get riled, right? I don't want to get riled. I don't want to have a fucking program. I don't want to do a program. I don't want to be a Jew yelling about how audacious society is. But you can see it is. I don't know who I'm trying to appeal to, both the offender and the possible savior. And I'm also saying myself, people like me, we need to organize, unite. If you can get a law degree, get a law degree. If you're in law school, don't drop out, stay in. If you do work for the government for a certain period of time, or certain nonprofits, they do give you forgiveness on some of your loans. Law school is not necessarily $300,000. There are some online versions of it. There are ABA-approved online versions of it. I believe the only one is Syracuse right now, but there may be more. No, I guess they're all ABA-approved. No, they're not. Be aware of that. If they're not ABA-approved, they're limited to a certain state, but you can always become a California lawyer and go from there. But we need to fight back. We need to stand up, fight back. This is people like Trump. This is people like Al Capone, who own buildings like this, who build buildings like this, who don't pay the contractors anything, and don't hire an architect, and don't use expensive materials, don't use okay materials, don't use acceptable materials, right? This could fall at any time. This is like a cardboard fucking, I don't know what you call it, flop house, like literally flop house. That's why it's called a flop house, because it can flop over at any time. There, you know, you have neighbors pointing at you. You don't want neighbors right out there pointing at you. You didn't need to build an annex to this building right there, like to where the neighbors are pointing at each other. That's all mafia. That's all to aggravate people all together, so they're all aggravated together. And there's no, you know, the bedroom should face to the north for health reasons. For the light, it should face to the north. So there's no acceptable excuse for any of you. The city mayor, I think you're doing your best. Please keep up the good work. I think you're better than the dyke. She totally destroyed the city. And I hope we never get a dyke mayor in any city in America ever again. But other than that, you know, that's what I'm raging on about. Hope you all join the cause, or if you're part of the problem, well, lock yourself in jail. I don't give a shit.